Okay, I'm Nick. I'm one half of North Star. I'm the artist and managing director. Been in the games industry as an artist for 24 years now, I think. The first game I ever made was on PS1. Made lots of different titles. Worked on lots of franchises, mainly in the early days for Sony. We were a third-party developer then, but we did a lot for Sony. Made games for Disney, things like Jungle Party on PS2 Vita. Other Buzz Junior games such as Robo Jam, Monster Rumble. Worked on the Muppet Monster Adventure on PS1. Stuart Little Big Photo Adventure PS2. Disney Think Fast Wii. That was for a company called Magenta Software. Sadly closed in 2014. So we were out in the big wide world then, and since then I've been doing a lot of contract work, working on other games for other companies, but also on the side, Adam and I have been making our own games, and the first of those to be released is Blocksplode. I'll let Adam do his intro now, but that's me more or less.
Hi, I'm Adam, the other half of the team. Most of what Nick said there is the same for me. Worked on a lot of the same games. Worked at Magenta with Nick. And we've really just been trying to, in our essentially spare time between projects for other people, put together a game of our own. It's not in the same kind of scale as a lot of the other games that we've worked on, but we do hope that it is at least fun and an enjoyable game to play.
Yeah.
Okay, so in a nutshell, what kind of game are we talking about?
Well, I'd say it's a casual destruction simulator meets a puzzle game. So it's puzzle solving using a physics simulation. You basically the basic. There are a few different mechanics, but the core mechanic is placing explosives to sink the structures underwater, and you get like a different target per level. You get different target levels, so it's based on a percentage of the blocks below the water. Gets slightly more complex as you progress because we've got things like a gem which you can't get in the water. If you do get in the water, you fail. There are blue blocks which taunt you quite a bit, and you have to get those in the water. So we can add different complexity as the game progresses by adding these elements in. Adam's, by the way, Adam's the designer, so he's the main design guy. But I think I've covered that.
Yeah, I would say, in a nutshell, place bombs on stuff and blow stuff up. The better you blow it up, the better you do.
Yeah.
What inspired you to make Blocksplode?
Well, as we touched on earlier, we've worked on lots of titles in the past, and a lot of those have been franchises with big publishers like Sony. They've cost millions of dollars, with much larger teams. We're not talking like hundreds and hundreds of people, but tens of people, but still, multi-million-dollar projects. And the concept of making a simple but fun puzzle game was very appealing to us. You don't get all the voice actors, the motion. We've worked with motion capture studios, facial capture. Big teams, very complex, and you're kind of a little cog in a big machine. So it's quite nice to do something like this that we can achieve. I think I'll let Adam talk about where he actually got the initial inspiration for it, because it was him that actually went off and searched and found something.
Yeah, as Nick says, most of the time we've worked with reasonably large teams, and while it's still, I think, fun making games for a living, it's often a bit of a logistical nightmare, and really a lot of organisation, a lot of deadlines. It can be quite tough. So just making something that was just more fun between us was, I think, where we wanted to be. So I spent a while, looking for ideas, looking for all sorts of bits and pieces in other games, and I had a look at, I think it's called Art of Balance on the Wii U, just kind of balancing blocks and having to make structures. And we looked at that and thought, well, maybe it would be more fun if you started with a structure and you blew it up, put explosives on it. That might be a fun kind of puzzle game. We did a quick prototype of it, and it showed a lot of promise. So we kind of went from there.
It's been compared to since. I mean, that was the main inspiration, but since it's been out in the world, we've had a lot of comments of like, "Oh, Angry Birds. Oh, it reminds me of a certain Flash game, or like Angry Birds, or Boom Blocks is another one." Which I don't know if you know anything about Edward about Boom Blocks, but it was designed by Steven Spielberg back for EA back about 10 odd years ago, I think, maybe a bit longer. But honestly, those two, I can see the similarity, but those weren't the inspiration originally. But along the way, it's come to our attention, and we've seen that ourselves. And you can definitely see the similarities. But it's that wasn't the original inspiration.
How did you get to a game that Steven Spielberg made? I didn't even know he made games.
Well, yeah. Well, it's because I don't know if it's basically on the Wii U, I think it was, and you had to. Was it Wii U, Adam?
I think it was the Wii initially.
Wii initially, and it was blocks, and you had to knock blocks down or throw things at it, and there's lots of mini games around it. But I think EA basically just went, it's Steven Spielberg, give him millions of dollars and make a game. I think he got a bit of a following actually, but it's not something I was aware of myself until we started making Blocksplode. Adam probably did, but I wasn't aware of it.
What makes Blocksplode different from other games?
I think the first thing is we haven't seen anything like it. We think it's a pretty unique mechanic. As we say, it's blowing stuff up, but it's not the Angry Birds throw a bird through a catapult. It's actually you have to figure out the physics, and there's a lot more of a puzzle element to it, and it's where the placement of the bombs is to take it down. So that core mechanic, I haven't really seen anywhere else used in a puzzle game. I'm pretty sure I've talked to Adam about this, and he hasn't either. And we just thought that it was something fun. Also, it's also fun destroying stuff, especially with explosives, and quite a therapeutic way to let off steam. That it's not usually practical, that really, because you might get in a bit of trouble. I think that's why I would say it's unique. I haven't seen anything that uses that core mechanic in that way in a puzzle game. Yeah, Adam?
I mean, we definitely wanted to get as close as we could to something like, a Lemmings or a Tetris or, I don't know, a Worm, something like that. We wanted to start with a unique mechanic and build the game around it as a puzzle game. Being a small team in indie, that's obviously for practical reasons as well. And we think it is a reasonably unique mechanic that we think is fun, and so far seems to be reasonably well reviewed.
Yeah.
For how long have you worked on Blocksplode?
Right. Well, we made the prototype back in 2017. So we thought, there's something in it. This is quite good fun. I mean, it's come on a long way since then, obviously, but I think around that time it was getting busy with the contract work we do, which pays the bills. It was getting really, so we had to move. We had to kind of put it on the shelf for a bit. So we picked it back up again and started work in earnest in kind of 2019. So I'd say there was an initial period back in 2017 we did the prototype, but then the proper kind of, we're spending a day a week on this, or 2 day or evenings, weekends from 2019. So I'd say, you're looking at a couple of years part-time, with a little bit tacked on in 2017.
What game engine did you use, and why did you decide to use this engine?
Unity. we both have a lot more experience in this engine, mostly because when Magenta ended, we both ended up working at a place that used Unity, and Adam had we both already started looking at different engines because Magenta had their own in-house engine, so we both looked at Unreal and Unity. But I think Unity seemed to be both of our favourites, and then the next contract job that we were working on used Unity, so we've had quite a lot of experience on it. So it made sense to, instead of starting from not scratch, because we do know a bit of Unreal as well, but definitely much easier starting with something that you're quite familiar with. It's a great engine, easier to port to different platforms, very quick for prototyping. And they didn't take 5% gross revenue as well. Okay, you get fees up front, but if you get something that sells reasonably well, then Unity's great. I think that's Adam. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to
that. No, I mean, as Nick says, we spent quite a number of years working with bespoke engine, as that's what people did. But when that ended, we did need to move into different engines, and a lot of people in the industry around where we work in Liverpool were using Unity. Pretty big teams, really. And it just made a lot more sense for us to concentrate on Unity as an engine. We have looked at doing some work in Unreal in the past, but we've got a lot of experience in Unity now. So
yeah, it doesn't make sense, did it? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really makes sense that if you know an engine, that you not choose another engine to work with.
Yeah.
Did you encounter any setbacks during the project, and what did you learn from them?
I wouldn't say so much on the development side. That's gone quite well. I think that's down to some of the things we touched on earlier, where because it's a smaller team and we've made sure the game is designed for us for feasibility for us to be able to make it. It hasn't been too bad. I mean, yeah, there's been a few little ups and downs, but nothing major. I think the only thing, it would have been quicker if we could have worked on it full time, but obviously we need some money to live, so we couldn't really do that. The other thing is there's a whole new side of the business that we had to become familiar with, because before we were kind of just devs. We were working for the Sony, doing third party. So for a company working for a Sony or a Disney, where they've got whole PR teams, marketing teams, whereas in indie, this is what you have to kind of handle that yourself. So all of that was, I've been in the industry 20 odd years, and only in the last 5 years, I'd say, really, this is a whole new area for me, which I've actually quite enjoyed. So it's really the PR marketing side really is what I'd say is counts as a setback, because it was, we've got to learn all this new stuff. We've worked with some, which are, again, they're a great team of guys called Inferno in the States. They've started working with us, I think it's around August, September last year. And they've definitely taken some of the pressure off us, so we can focus a little bit more on the dev, and we upgraded quite a few things, gameplay wise, code wise, graphics wise. So that really helped, because there's quite a lot of time you spend on the other side of being an indie developer, which is, I think, something that maybe a lot of people that go into it don't realise. But there's still a lot to learn in that as well. So yeah, that will be it for me on that one.
Yeah, I'd say that no matter whatever you pick, things are always more complicated than you think, and always take longer.
There's that as well.
That size and scope is difficult to judge, because I think at the moment we have 90 or so levels in the main game, and then hard versions of all of those. We've got loads of levels in the editor and things, and get the balance of the difficulty right is a bit of a challenge, and really the amount of content is a bit of a challenge. Not necessarily setbacks, but just, it's always more than you think.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's like localization, wasn't it? 21 languages was a kind of a last-minute challenge, wasn't it? I suppose.
Why did you choose to do 21 different languages?
Well, so more people can play it, really. So you can, it's okay. We're English speaking, so we can reach a lot of people. But there are some, other countries might not speak English, and we thought it'd be really great to get it out there for those people to play. I mean, it makes sense from terms of the business point of view, because more people that can play it, the better. But in terms of wanting people just to play your game as well, you reach more people. So it was difficult, but we think it's been worth it. So
you probably hired people for that, because I assume you don't speak 21 languages.
No, we don't. No, what we did was Inferno, actually. This is where they helped us out. They knew a lot of people, and they helped us out by translating a lot of the languages, and then we've put them in on the credits. So they've done us a favour and really helped us with that. Yeah, you'd be surprised if you ask people how willing they are to help, especially when you're only a small team. It's not like, we're Sony with our millions of dollars that can just pay people to translate. We have to either we don't do it, or we try and ask the community to help us. And Infernozilla did that and helped us out. So it was tricky, but we did it. So very proud of that.
If you can advise a new or a young indie game developer, what will you tell them?
I think this is what it's kind of Adam touched on this earlier. Be realistic with your scope and timescale plans. Don't think you can make a AAA with indie resources, because it's surprising. You go, well, that's obvious, but there's a lot of people, and when you hear some game ideas, you go, whoa, well, you're going to need an animator then. You're going to need a bank of animators, actually, and you're going to need, you can see from an idea if someone's saying comes up with like something. When you're trying to make like I don't know, Call of Duty or something for and there's 3 in the team, you go, no, that's not going to happen. So be realistic with your scope and timescale plans. It's really common. I mean, I've known a lot of people and read online a lot of people that start lofty projects and then abandon them when it's obvious they won't get finished. So you just got to be very careful about that and look at the resources, the skill set you have, the people you have, obviously, and the time you have, and then really be honest and look at your scope and say, do they match up? Is that achievable? The other thing I'd say is if you're just doing it for money, the chances are you'll be disappointed. It can be lucrative and you get outliers and you get the top end, but it's like you get a distribution curve like on anything. So, it can be lucrative, but not for everyone. So if you're just going into it thinking it's a fast way to make money, you'll be disappointed. I'd also say if you're starting out, obviously learn game dev, pick an engine. Luckily now, when we started, we were making Adam was making, the coders were making their own engine, proprietary engine, and we kind of had to look around and try and find resources and really research or think things up ourselves. Whereas now there's just, if I need to learn something in Unity, I can go online. And I do it all the time. If there's something new I need, I'll go on and look and go, oh, that's how you do it. Either it's their documentation, YouTube articles, GDC videos, there's tons of resources out there. The other thing is, once you've got your game idea and you've done a sanity check on it, that it is actually feasible, is make a simple game prototype. It doesn't have to be pretty. A lot of the art can be added later. It's more important to get the gameplay feeling right, because what you don't want to do is just make it look really, really pretty and the game's rubbish. It doesn't work because you just wasted a lot of time. Those are my kind of little tips, I'd say. Adam, got any to add?
Do some research, look at other games, look at how much content they've got, what kind of complexity and quality that you're competing with. if you can, try and find out maybe some rough ideas of how well those games did, because as Nick says, you're not likely to make a great deal out of it, but you may as well kind of try and target something that at least looks a possibility. I'd say try and come up with an idea that's maybe a little bit different, something that can differentiate itself, and very carefully look at the feasibility of what you want to make, and can you produce something of a high enough quality with the kind of time and resources that you've got, because it is so easy to overscope things and just end up with something that you can't complete. As Nick says, a lot of abandoned projects. So if you can start with something simple, prototype, and it's fun, it's a good start, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think about the current marketing strategies in the indie game industry?
Well, online presence is essential. Obviously, social media, influencers, very important again. I think it's touched on what I said earlier, you can do a lot yourself to get organic traffic, but it does help if you can get some paid advertising or bring in someone to help you. So we got the guys at Inferno to help us, and that did really give us a bit of a boost. And it also made us feel, working in a wider team, it did kind of give us an impetus to get things done as well. So current marketing strategies, I say, if you're an indie dev and if you can get a publisher, I would definitely recommend that if you can, or someone to work alongside you as a partner, because it's going to take some of the heat off you, and also the know-how, because there's a bunch of, as I said, there's a lot to learn on that side of the indie games business. And if you're a dev and you want to focus on being the dev and making a good game, good graphics, good gameplay, then that's a lot of work. So if you can get someone to help you, great, and they'll know more about the current marketing strategies than you probably will as well. That's what my tip would be. So I don't, Adam, if you've got anything.
I don't think I've got a lot to add to that, other than it's difficult as an indie developer, and publishers are a lot better at it. So if you can get a publisher, I think that's.
If you can get a good one as well.
Yes.
It's difficult, that. Yeah.
Where do you see the indie game market going in a few years?
Well, I think we can all agree that indie games are no longer seen as a novelty and haven't been for a while. Many players prefer them to big titles, and as a result, it's getting more popular than ever to make an indie game. So you get a lot more games out there. The downside of that is it's really hard to stand out, which is kind of, again, what we've touched on with the marketing strategies and working with the partner. But there are definitely some pluses. I mean, you've got the engines now, so I can see that they're only getting better. You've got relatively new, anyway, stores such as Epic offering exclusivity deals with the possibility of some funding. So you could try and get that as an indie dev. The consoles are easy to get onto. They all want a slice of the indie market. VR looks really interesting at the moment. I know there's, Adam, I worked on some VR stuff back in 2014, when it was really buzzy, but didn't really take off. But now you're getting Quest 2, where you're getting sales of hardware. I mean, there's PSVR as well before that, but Quest 2 actually looks like it's doing the business now. So you're getting a lot of sales on the hardware there. The market doesn't look overly saturated on that for indie games. So something interesting. It's a bit like Switch was a few years ago, in terms of not overly saturated. Whereas you look at Steam and mobile, especially Steam saturated and mobile, but you need quite a lot of marketing push or be an outlier to get any kind of traction in those markets. That's my opinion on that.
Yeah, I don't think I've anything much to add to that. It's there's kind of the engine's making life a lot easier. The barrier to entry for indie games is ever falling, which on one side is very good, but on the other side it does end up with a degree of saturation, difficulty to stand out. So it's still evolving, I think.
Yeah, I mean, as a someone that likes making games, it's great because the tools are out there and they're fantastic. But if you know, on the other side of the business, if you want to stand out and you want your game to sell a lot, then that's really, I think that's quite tough. So going back to the previous question, yeah, I think if you can get a partner on board, then great. I mean, you know, there's plenty of games out there, developers that have done well without that, but they are the outliers in a very small percentage. So you have to be realistic, and you have to make games because you enjoy making them and you love making them. So, which is great because I think Adam and I do.
Okay, the next question will be a bit weird for you since you have like as much experience that I was like 6 when you started.
Yeah. Oh, now I feel old. Yeah. Yeah.
But did you learn the whole game development thing in school, or did you learn it like on your own?
Yeah, definitely self-taught. When I was back in school, I didn't even know making games could be a career. It wasn't like a thing. It was. I remember doing computer studies, and in there, and it was like, yeah, you can go on to, you know, work with databases or become a programmer. Or it wasn't like, oh, you can, especially from my point of view, make 3D graphics. So I trained originally as a mechanical engineer. So, but I never liked it. I really never liked it. But I was kind of like, what will I do? I'd like to just play on the computer. But I like messing around with 3D graphics, which is what I could actually do on the 3D engineering side of things. So I kind of got into doing it that way. And I also did art at school, so I enjoyed that. So it's kind of mixing of the two. So yeah, self-taught. I know there's tons of courses now that you can do, but at the time it just didn't exist. So yeah, that's my story.
Yeah, as Nick says, when we were at school, I don't think there was so much in computers, and certainly not in making games. I think I got a Commodore VIC-20 when I was about 8, and people just used to get magazines with game listings in them and sit and type them in and things, and it kind of got me into programming and writing my own programs. And I mean, I did do a degree in computer studies, so in that sense I got formal education in some aspects of programming and computers, but not really in games. So all the game stuff is pretty much self-taught, but I don't think there was anything available in the kind of times that we started.
No, there wasn't. It was very much like, you know, I remember at the time how it was the thing at the time to go into town and meet your friends and your mates, and it was kind of like go to the stores, and you had the store and they had like little shelves with computer games on the cassettes, and it was kind of like that's what got me into it. It's like bringing these home, playing them, and then I got like you're saying, your first computer, mine was a ZX81. So I had a ZX81 and a 16K expansion pack on the back, but it wobbled. So you used to type all like you're saying, Adam, with the little magazines, you type it all in, and you type it all in and wobble and lose it all. So it wasn't good. But I used to love games and just talking to my mates about games, and you just didn't realise that you could actually make a career from it. And obviously you could, but it was only a small number of people then. And I've got to meet some of those people since that have made games since the 80s. So yeah, pretty cool. But it's great. It's good now. I mean, there's a lot of courses, and that it's good. I mean, if you were starting out now, I would imagine you'd pick which discipline you want to go into, whether it's design, code, art, audio, and there's a course for it. There isn't this in the UK anyway. I know there is. It's quite a lot, and very popular as well. That's the other thing when you mention to people, oh, you make games, people are just like, wow. You go, yeah. They think you just play games all day, though, I think. But you do a little bit, but you have to make them as well. Anyway, I digress.
Okay. So, what is your favorite video game of all time and why?
Right, okay, well, I'll go first on that. But this is a really difficult one. I was talking to Adam about this earlier, and it's kind of like, I'm going to have to say Pong. Now, the reason I'm saying this, it's not the best game I've ever played, but it was the first game I ever played at like a neighbour's house on a console, and it blew my mind. It was like, what, you can do this? Because before that point, not really, you've not seen that. So it was just something. It was like magical. I remember. So I'd say that because it got me into games. Started me off on that path. But there's other games which I've enjoyed as a game, and I do actually think games got better. I know some retro people will not like to hear this because they think the games are better in the old days. But I think as a generalization, the games have got better. And along that journey, there's games that have stood out for me. Things like Battlezone, because that was first I'd seen like wireframe vector graphics. So it was like almost 3D. It was like, that was amazing. Games like Sensible Soccer, when I was at uni playing with my friends, it was like first multiplayer experience, but all in the same room, which was great. Things like Elite, the first one, way back. Star Raiders, which I think was even earlier than that. Mooncrester in the arcade. Space Invaders, Gauntlet, Monkey Island, Res a bit later on. Things like Res Journey on PlayStation I loved. Half-Life 2, Fallout 3, Team Fortress 3. I could keep going on. Team Fortress 3, Skyrim, Dishonored, Firewatch. The GTAs for the sheer scale of the thing. Last of Us 1 and 2. I haven't finished 2 yet. I've kind of put it on the hold because I've been so busy. But I love those for the actual the storytelling, the script, the acting, the whole amazing in that. Witcher 3, Red Dead 2, finished that, brilliant. Yeah, so favorite Pong, but as you can see, I like lots of different types of games. Yeah,
I have never heard anyone say their favorite game ever was Pong before, so
yeah, it's that's why I wouldn't say it was my favorite game to play, but it was my favorite because from my perspective, it introduced me to a world of games. So it was my gateway to games. So not the best entertaining game, though at the time I did love it, and it was a classic. But yeah, I mean, you can't compare. I mean, if you get something like I don't know, Witcher 3 and compare that to Pong, then in terms of content and emotional content, gameplay, graphics, scope, you can't compare it. But it's quite a personal thing. It's just because I remember that moment, seeing Pong and thinking, "What is this?" Because there wasn't anything really like that. You know, that's it for me, really. So yeah, long answer, but there you go.
There's also like a really big time difference between Pong and The Witcher 3. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's amazing how much games in the industry have progressed. It's just, you see stuff now and you go, wow, that's unbelievable. Really is unbelievable. But I suppose what we were trying to do almost with going back to Blocksplode is going back to those kind of roots a little bit more as well. And I think a lot of indie games and teams are doing that. Even some of the indie teams which are younger, younger people are making it, that you can see they're getting back to some of the simple core kind of things about a game, which is great. So, great. I love it at the moment. It's good. All good. So I'm so glad I did go into games, because there's so many people I've met that have ended up in careers that they're really not that interested in. Whereas I actually really do love making the games or the art for games. So it's good.
I think I'd have to. I thought about this for a while because it is a tough question. But I'm going to be a bit more conventional, and I think I'd have to go with Mario Kart, just because I don't think I've played a game that's been quite so much fun for so many years that on the Nintendo 64. I mean, the people that I knew, we just played that game for year after year, and it was very competitive. It was always great fun. So, yeah, I'd probably go for that. Other close contenders, I think, when I got Doom 2 on my first PC, I was like really impressed by that.
Yeah. I forgot to say about Doom as well and Quake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was just hooked on Doom 2 for some time, so it's brilliant. But yeah, there are so many games. I am playing The Last of Us Part 2 at the moment as well.
Yeah.
Loved Part 1, thought it was brilliant, but the quality of them is so good. Something like Ocarina of Time, when I first played that was amazing as well. It's a tough question, but
It is. It's the toughest one, I think.
just because I don't think I've played any other game as much and for so many years, I would go with Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my final question. I don't have any more. Do you have like other things you want to say?
No, I don't think so. It's just I think you could good questions actually. I don't think there's anything else I could add. I don't know. You, Adam?
No, not especially. I think we've been
I think
through a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I think for me it's just reiterating for any like new or young indie devs coming in, just be thoughtful of your scope, because it's such a common problem that people overscope things and don't allow enough time or don't have the resources, the skills to see it through, and you see it from quite experienced people as well. I'm not gonna go into that too much, but you do see it, and this is why deadlines can go over, and you don't get things finished or things get dropped because you just have to be really mindful of it. And I think it's because you've got something in your head, and you've got this like picture of what you think it's going to look like, and you're so excited about it, and you just have to then. The boring bit is, and the sad bit is, you have to then balance that with the reality. And you can still come up with something really cool, and those restrictions can make you be quite creative as well. So it's not a negative thing, I don't think. Yeah, that's the main takeaway. From my point of view, for anyone starting out.
A phrase that comes up quite a bit is laser focused.
Yeah.
Just stay on target, stick to what it is that you're doing, and as long as you've started with something realistic, you can get through it.
Yes. Yeah.
But don't be careful not to just think, but we could also, and you can have this feature creep come in, and it can just rapidly become infeasible. So stay focused.
Yeah, stay focused.
Okay, then this is the end of the interview because there's no questions left. You've said everything. I want to thank you for your time, and I will put the links to like the store page in the description below.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yep, thanks a lot. It's been interesting.
Yeah, it's been really good. Yeah, thanks, Edward. And I hope your clothes come and you don't get any more noise on your balcony.
I hope not, indeed.
Yeah.